Three, two.
All right, so my name is Josh Skinner. I'm in a group with Abram Thorne and Peyton Calvert, and we, I believe, picked topic 3, where we're talking about a war in U.S. history since 1776. We chose the Iraqi War, one, because it's extremely controversial and has kind of come back into light with some tensions that are going on in the Middle East. So with that, we'll talk about the overview, positive views, negative views, the outcome, what actually happened, and then our views that we came up with. Excuse me. So moving on, we'll get into the first slide, the overview. With the Iraqi War, it's also known as the Second Gulf War. It lasted approximately 9 years, give or take, on where you want to count the end of it. A big reason was we had just come off the 9/11 attacks, so we were really trying to stress the dangers of terrorists and terror organizations, and we believed that Iraq had acquired or created WMDs, weapons of mass destruction. There was no real good evidence. It was more of a suspicion rather than anything based on our part as the U.S. And so in order to conclude if they had them or not, we would send a former Marine who became a lead inspector on discovering if Iraq had these WMDs. And then on top of all that, the other main goal the U.S. had was to stop Saddam Hussein, who was quite literally a horrible person. Not many good things to say about him. He's actually really evil with some of the crimes against humanity that he committed over there. So those were kind of the main goals of the U.S. heading into the Gulf War or the Iraqi War. So some positive views that would support it would be obviously removing Saddam Hussein from power. We have a history of doing that, where we don't like somebody who's in power currently in a country, and we will do almost anything necessary to replace that with somebody that we like. If you don't believe me, look at the Cold War, look at Cuba, a lot of the Latin American countries. But we did this in order to promote democracy. That was a big, whatever you want to call it, mantra, motto, kind of like remember the Maine. We were wanting to promote democracy over in the Middle East. And we believed that by doing this, it would free the Iraqi citizens from basically a dictator with Saddam Hussein. Excuse me. And then for us, for our people, we believe that removing him, getting rid of him, would make our national security better, because now we have removed a very dangerous man from office. We can finally go in further to our investigation of if they have WMDs or if they have somehow acquired them, created them. So ultimately, promote democracy, remove Saddam Hussein, make sure our national security isn't under any jeopardization or anything. And then we wanted this all, the removal of the supposed WMDs and Saddam Hussein, to create more stability. You will see later that that did not happen. But that's the overview and the positive views of what occurred during the Gulf War. So now I will pass it off to Peyton, who will talk about the negative views and the outcome.
Hayden. Sorry about that. With the negative views, comes with a questionable justification with events such as 9/11 and the possible making of the weapons of mass destruction. Then we move on to, protecting civilian casualties from the war and destabilization of the governments, where lots of financial aid, lots of money moves through the Middle East, and especially American money when it comes to oil, industrialization. And so that leads us to more of the financial cost of the war, which really took a hit on the American government and the economy. Then we go to the American public felt lied to by their own government. Lots of conversation going on, distrust in President Bush, distrust in the information they were given, whether this was justified or not. And this led to insurgent groups taking power. So you got groups like ISIS and terrorist organizations and radicals from the Middle East. Outcome of the Iraq War. Liberation of Kuwait from Iraqi control. This was a successful liberalization. Removing Saddam Hussein stayed in power far after the war and led us into the terrorist war. Ceasefire agreement of 1911, where Iraq destroyed all weapons of mass destruction as they were requested to by the U.S. and the United Nations. Iraq struggled tremendously with their economy and infrastructure. So this really took a hit for their own country's economy and something that they still haven't recovered from today.
All right, and now our personal views. We believe that this destabilized the Middle East even more. Iraq destroyed their weapons of mass destruction and were thoroughly inspected to make sure inspection was halted before the final weapon of mass destruction was found. We empowered terrorist groups over time. Too many unnecessary lives lost. And overall, we did a great thing, ended Saddam Hussein's rule, but at what cost did that come? Thank you.